talk about why rivers matter. So she'll obviously go a little bit more into it. And by the way, if you guys are interested in doing a GIS activity with Ms. Jones, we have these laptops set up so you can do that. So we've been given permission to take another 5 or 10 or 15 minutes just to, have you do some hands-on activity after Ms. Moody speaks. Okay? All right.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
What a beautiful day. You guys ready for some fall weather? Yeah, ready for the weather to cool down? I'm ready for it. So what I'm going to talk about is less scientific. This is going to be more of a fun presentation to talk about why rivers matter. So a lot of people, you wouldn't believe, really have no idea what to do on a river except for fish. And that's about all they can think of in terms of going out on the river. Can you guys think of some other things that are fun to do on the river? What?
Canoe.
Canoe? Oh yeah, there you go. What about you?
To sail.
Sail? That's cool. Do you have a sailboat? No. What about you? Swim? Yeah, definitely. Anybody else? Surf? Hey, that's pretty cool. You gotta get some waves going. They actually do surf on the river out in Oregon. They have the big Columbia River Gorge, so they windsurf on the river. Yeah? Like what? Tubing, yeah, definitely. Very cool. So there's a lot of fun things that y'all can do on the river during the summertime, but also in the fall. So I want to kind of go over those. We're going to have a lot of pictures, but I just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page on just the basics of rivers and streams. So these are the 14 major river basins in Georgia. Which one are you guys in?
Chattahoochee.
Yep, you're in the Chattahoochee, but what about the South River? Anybody heard of the South River? Raise your hand if you ever heard of the South River. One person. 2 people. Wow. Okay, well, you guys should all make a point to go out before the end of the year. This is my challenge to you. Go out and explore the South River. And I know that's probably going to be something y'all do. Is it next semester? Canoe trip or a kayak trip? Not sure. But go on your own. Check it out because it's really close by and it's something that is a really cool and beautiful resource that you guys have right here in your neighborhood. But it's actually in the Moody Basin. And so this is Atlanta right here. So it's just in this kind of tip. So you guys are right in this area here. So there's other parts of Atlanta that are part of the Chattahoochee, but y'all are in the Moody. Now, what's a major difference in these basins? Like, where do you think that this basin, does anybody know where the rivers in this basin end up in the Chattahoochee? Gulf of Mexico. And what about the ones in the Moody?
The Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, there you go. So they go to different places, right? Who would have thunk it? A lot of people don't, okay? They don't think about it at all. So, but sometimes you should. You know, this is where you live. You should know about it. And then it's broken down even further, okay? So then it goes into 52 watersheds. Starts to get a little complicated, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I can't remember all this. This is too much. Well, at least focus on your own place, where you live, okay? So like I was mentioning, you're in the upper Okmulgee. And you can see it flows down, and then it'll eventually come out, and it'll end up and get up to the, let's see here, down here, flows to the Altamaha, and boop, down at the coast. How many of you guys have ever been to the coast? Anybody been to the beach? Yeah. Did you ever think about that the rivers end up at the beach where you're like swimming? And so all the things that you do up here affect all of those people that live along the rivers, all the way right down to the coast. So it's important to remember that everything is connected. No matter what you do here, it's going to connect your neighbor that's further south or further east, whatever direction that river flows. And so they care. They care if you're polluting, if you're dumping your stuff down the drain. They care, right? Because they're fishing or they're swimming or they have their family, they're living off that river. So it's really important to think about your actions because rivers, they really do matter. Okay, so keep that in mind. And I know that y'all talked about watersheds, but I just want to make sure that you guys really understand what a watershed is. So a lot of people think, okay, it rains. So everybody put your hands, scoop your hands like this. Whoop. All right, pretend your fingertips are the mountains. Okay, so those are the mountains. Have y'all been to the mountains of Georgia? Yeah. Anybody know what they're called? Blue Ridge, what's another word? Yes, Appalachian Mountains, that's right. So these are the little Appalachian Mountains, okay? The river, you got a little miniature rain cloud. It's raining down your hands. And just pretend that in between your fingers are little streams. And then the main channel, where your hands come together, that's like the main flow. And then where your wrists kind of come together, that's the ocean. So the water's coming down, it's ending in the ocean. Well, that's not just what a watershed is. It's also important to remember that pretend your hands are sponges, okay? The water is absorbing into the ground, okay? So your hand is like soil. So it's really important to think about all the water that we use. It's not just running down into a river, okay? It also absorbs into the ground, and it's called what? Groundwater. Groundwater. Oh my gosh, that's so hard, I know. Yeah, it's groundwater, okay? And so when people dig wells, they're tapping into that groundwater. That's how they get their water. So one thing that's really important about a watershed is that filtration process of the soil. So the soil actually acts like a sponge and also a filter. So all the pollutants and all that nasty that comes down, it starts to get filtered out. So when you have trees and vegetation, that's holding that soil in place. So it doesn't wash into the river. And did you know that soil, we call it kind of dirt, it's dirty, right? Well, it's also dirty in the river because it clogs the river and makes it really hard for organisms like fish to survive, okay? So if you don't have trees and roots to hold that soil in, all that soil washes downstream and it causes major problems. If you've ever been on the river or seen the river after a rainstorm, do you notice it changes color?
Yes.
Yeah, what color does it usually get around here?
Like brown.
Brown or red, right? We got Georgia red clay. So it gets red. And a lot of times people don't realize that back in the day where they didn't really understand about topsoil and how important it was to have that soil, all the erosion caused most of our topsoil. Why is topsoil important? Does anybody know? Yeah?
Vegetation.
What's so important about plants?
They give out
They give out oxygen.
Yeah? What else? Yeah. Yeah, okay, what else? What's really important about plants that we rely on?
Air.
Okay, go food! Yes, I like to eat. You guys like to eat? I'm telling you, I love to eat. So, we care about the soil because soil produces plants. It's agriculture, right? It's kind of all connected. So, think about that, okay? If all the topsoil is gone into the river, we can't even grow our plants. So it's really important for those tree roots and all those roots to hold in the soil. So if you're ever driving down the road or riding down the road and you see on the side there's all this red clay and there's, it's obvious that there's no vegetation or erosion, that's not a good thing. And there are laws against that. When you see fences up that protect all the runoff. So there's reasons behind all these things that we do, and they all are connected. So you can see it's kind of like with your hands, the rain comes down. You've got people playing soccer on the field. You've got the agriculture going on. You've got cows. Poop, not such a great thing in the stream. Okay, it's good for fertilizer, but if you have too much of it, what happens when you have too much poop in the stream? What? It contaminates it. But one thing, it's like fertilizer. So things like to grow. If there's lots of poop, right? They're like, this is great. So one thing that grows is algae. You guys ever heard of algae? So what happens is all that poop, it flows all the way down, and where does it end up? Where's the Chattahoochee end up?
The Gulf of Mexico.
Gulf of Mexico. And guess what they have in the Gulf of Mexico? They have what's called a dead zone. That's scary, isn't it? Because you know what that means? Everything's dead. That's right. There's no air. And what does that mean for fishermen?
That they can't get fish.
That's right. That's their livelihood, So what we do here in Atlanta affects people and their livelihood down in the Gulf of Mexico. That's pretty crazy. You don't even think about that. You're like, what? Oh my gosh. Okay? So, it's important to think about those connections. So here's just some pictures. It's really hard to see with the light, but, did you guys ever think about drinking water? Like, where do you get your water that you drink? From the faucet. That's very true. I like that answer. Very good. Okay, yes, you're right. And a lot of people, for them, that's where it stops. They're like, turn the faucet on. It's that easy. Okay, but you got to think past that and think about, okay, well, guess what? We depend on the river for our drinking water. And so when we have like drought conditions, did you guys know we were in a drought right now?
No.
Oh my gosh. Well, we are. Yeah, so we have not very much water right now. So it's really important, one of the main things that people are reaching out and saying, hey, this is the time that we need to work together as a community and save water. So when you're brushing your teeth, It's important that you don't just leave the water running. Okay, think about it. Oh, turn the water off. Because when we run out of water, we're going to start realizing how precious it is. Okay? So just keep those things in mind. Y'all ever been kayak? How many people have ever been canoeing or kayaking? That's pretty good. Yeah, right on. It's a lot of fun. If you start out doing stuff easy, you know, like no rapids, you'll really enjoy yourself. So I encourage you to get out and do this. What is this? What's this going on? Anybody?
Holy stuff.
Baptism. Yeah, so it's really important culturally. Religious baptisms took place on rivers, okay? You wanted this to be a clean place, don't you? You don't want to be going in some polluted area and getting baptized. Also fishing. Very, very fun, and especially if you can eat the fish that you caught. How many of you guys have ever, like, eaten the fish that you caught yourself? Like, that is a cool feeling, is it not? I think that's a pretty cool feeling. So, and then of course, just playing around in waterfalls. This was actually in Jamaica. Made me think of Patrice. But yeah, so there's a lot of really fun things that you can do. And who else cares about rivers? Well, like I said, livelihood, okay? So, vegetables. You can have, what has to happen to these crops?
Get water.
They have to get water, right? If y'all, who's ever been out west? Anybody ever been out west? Out west, United States?
Oh.
Like, have you ever, when you fly over, have you guys seen the crops they have out there? They're like these giant circles. And they have these irrigators that are, it's crazy. So it takes a tremendous amount of water to water all of our food that we eat. So, and guess where that water's coming from?
The river.
Rivers, but also underground. Remember all that groundwater I was talking about? And in a lot of places, we're sucking it dry. Who knows what the name of the place where a lot of this water collects? Anybody? It starts with an A. Aquifer. Very good. Very good. You get extra bonus points for that answer. That's tough. Very tough. So we're sucking so much water out of this aquifer that pretty soon it's going to dry up. And then guess what happens after that when it dries up? There's no more water, but guess what? Water starts to intrude inside. What kind of water would not be so great for us to drink? Dirty water, salt water. So the water that's from the ocean is going to start getting into our aquifers. And that's no bueno, no good. Okay, so once we run out, we're in big trouble. And we have to come up with new technological advances to desalinate the water, which is super duper expensive. So it's much easier if we just start to conserve water ourselves and think about it before we just use it and run the tap forever and ever. What about this? What's this? Can anybody see that? Anybody anybody like raw oysters? Yeah, you like raw oysters? Good for you. Yeah. Most people are like, oh my God, that's so disgusting. Well, oysters are a big industry down on the Gulf as well, in Apalachicola. So those fishermen, they rely on the oysters. This is actually really interesting. These are called the watermen, and they're African Americans that are on the Chesapeake Bay, and they have been clamming for generations. That's how they make their livelihood, is through clams. So very important to their industry. And here you can see this guy's getting his catch of fish, huge numbers of fish. So people rely on it for their income. That's their mainstay for their families. And then who else? Anybody ever seen a river otter?
Yes.
They're so cute. They're like little bears. And yeah, y'all have seen one? They're really beautiful. What else? What other kind of animals? What's that?
That's a beaver.
Yeah, it's a beaver. If you go out at sunset and you're kind of quiet or you're paddling and you hear this bam, what do you think that noise is?
It's tail.
Yeah, it's their tail, because you're getting close to them and they're like, whoa, you're startled me, or you're too close to my babies, or whatever it is. But these guys, they rely on clean water. What else do they eat?
Wood.
No.
Yeah, they eat wood. They actually just eat the bark. And what do they do with the rest of it?
They build a home.
They build their dam. They build their home. Exactly. Very good. So, what about this? Anybody ever seen one of these guys?
A bear.
Yeah, black bear. Who's seen a bear out in the wild? Yeah. Very cool. Those are hard to see. So, if y'all ever go out, camping or, out on a river, you will see these guys. They love to eat fish. They also eat all kinds of other berries. What about this? What's that?
That's a no.
It's a frog.
Looks kind of like a turtle. Nope, it's a frog. What's our state frog?
I forgot. I didn't like this.
Anybody?
Bullfrog? No.
No, that's close though. Bullfrog would be close. It's actually a green tree frog. And they're really beautiful. They're like super bright green and they have a white stripe. Very nice little guy. And what about this? Who knows what this is called?
Crane.
For those that like birds. No, it's not a crane. No, not a swan. You guys need to study your birds. This is an egret. It's a great egret. So it's very similar to a heron. Anybody ever seen a blue heron? Mm-hmm. Cool. They're beautiful. You know how much a blue heron weighs?
5.
No, you think 50 pounds, but you know how much it is? 7 pounds. Yeah, beautiful birds. These are all the birds, the fish, the turtles, the otters, the clams, the mussels, all of these organisms right down to your tiny little guys that you guys pass around that really depend on the river and for it to be clean for their survival, okay? And yeah, we might like to eat some of them, but really there's some value in just them being happy, just like we just want to be happy, right? It's a good thing we're not getting eaten in the same way. So some other things just to take note of. Our populations are growing, right? So there's going to be more demand on the resource. So as we consume more, there's going to be more demand, there's going to be more pollution. And you can just see, here's Atlanta, look how the change is over time. It's boom, 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 okay? And that was back in 2010, so it's 2 years past that now. So lots of people, lots of demand. And also, you know, we've got freshwater fish species at risk. So there's, 19%, 55 different species that are at risk in Georgia. So, these fish species are very much affected. And so you have different types of pollution. Who can tell me what non-point source pollution is? This is a tricky. Yes? Right? So if it's non-point, you can't really tell, right? And then point source is there's a pipe that's sticking out in the river and you're like, boom, you are polluting, I see the pipe coming out. Whereas this, non-point, it's like, we don't really know exactly where to find the source, but we know it's somewhere. So we got to trace it back. We got to find out where it is. Things like urban runoff, agricultural runoff, those are non-point sources. And then sewage treatment plants, dumping toxins, industrial facilities, those are more like the factory pipes going in. And here's just some lovely pictures of runoff. So, and a lot of times, factories, they've got a permit to pollute. They can pollute a certain amount. So if you see a pipe going into the river, it doesn't mean that it's illegal. It might not be like the best place to go swimming, let me tell you, and it might be something, if you're like raising an eyebrow, you see a bunch of dead fish, you're like, something's not right about this. I need to go report it, and contact South River Watershed Alliance or EPD and say, okay, something's fishy, literally, check it out. So just to make sure. And then here's non-point. They were talking about washing your car. Ends up in the river. Okay? When you're filling up at the gas station, that little bit of gas that spills out on the pavement, that's going straight to the river. Right? You're going to be swimming in that, even though it might be diluted. These storm drains, all that stuff is flowing down. And you guys, this is pretty close to home at South River. I don't know if you guys remember when it was pretty much closed for swimming. That was a pretty sad time for folks here because they really thought that it was like a place to go swim. And it was a beautiful beach area. You guys have been down to the path area where the big beach is down on Panola Shoals. Y'all know Panola Shoals? Mm-hmm. That used to be closed for swimming. So, it really does affect us. What about this? What's this? Chickens. What's special about chickens in Georgia?
They lay eggs.
Well, they do lay eggs. Huh? That's right. Georgia, we produce a ton of chickens. I think it's like the first in the nation at least, and I don't know about the world, but we produce some chickens, and boy, do I like some fried chicken. So it's good stuff. All right, but the thing is, these guys poop, right? And that poop has got to go somewhere. So a lot of times, people will spread it back on their agriculture plots, their plants, but then other times, they'll dump it a little bit too close to the river, and it'll end up in the river, and oh my gosh, totally disgusting, okay? So another way that we get pollution into our streams and rivers. So one thing, I love this one, we'll work for clean water, right? We don't want the fish to be doing this, right? That's no bueno. So what you guys can do is get involved and get out there and go swimming and tell all your friends like, hey, let's go do a kayaking trip or a canoe trip or go swimming or enjoy the resource and make sure people realize you guys all should have your hands up. Yeah, I know the South River's here. It's freaking cool. I love that place. I go swimming all the time. It's like our beach, you know? So that's what we want to do. And with South River Watershed Alliance, we really want to make it so it's a water trail. Who knows what a water trail is? I didn't think so. What about a greenway? Anybody ever heard of a greenway? No? Oh my gosh. Okay, so a greenway is like a path that you can walk that's public. Usually it's along a river or in a city park, and it's designated. And sometimes it actually makes a whole loop, okay? And so people bike, people rollerblade, whatever it is, it's kind of like the path. It's similar to that, okay? It's just a nice walkway that's maintained. Well, we want to do the same thing and make a blue way. So basically it's a place you can get in. The water has a nice little put in or take out location. Put your boat in and you go downstream however long. Maybe there's some rapids, whatever it is. There's signage that tells you Niagara is right around the bend. Might be a good idea to take out here, okay? So you know what you're about to get yourself into. So, and then there's a takeout point. Maybe there's camping, whatever it is, but we envision the South River to become a really awesome recreational resource for you guys. So that means we need to clean it up. And that's where you guys can get involved with organizations like Adopt a Stream, with organizations like Rivers Alive. Who knows what Rivers Alive is? What? Oh, so you got another club? They do, and what they do is they get all of the trash, that tires, anything like that, that's on the riverbanks or even in the river, and they pick it all up and they recycle it. So it cleans it up. So it's a fun thing to do. It's a great way to get involved, and you get to be in the river and do it at the same time. So it's really a great way to show that you appreciate the resource. Other Project WED, that's kind of an educational organization, part of EPD. Look at all these tires they got out of the river. Do you know how many tires we saw on the South River when we went paddling? Take a guess. It seemed like it was about 1 million.
50. 70.
Way more than 50. I think we probably saw 1,000 tires. Yeah. So people, you know, why do people dump their tires? What's a reason they might think is a good reason to dump their tires? Anybody know?
They need to get rid of it.
Who said it?
Who said it? $75 they charge you when you get the tire change, they charge you extra fee.
That's exactly right. So people, instead of paying to dispose of their tires properly, they just dump them in the river, and that's why we have so many tires. Okay, so there's a big problem with that, and we're going to try to do a big cleanup, which you guys should become involved with if you're interested in getting all those tires out. That would be really awesome. And then also, this is also a fun way to kind of see what kind of fish are in the river. Is called, anybody know what this is called?
Net.
Yeah, it's a net. Anybody know the type of net? It's a seine net. So you have one person on either side, and you kind of dig it into the sand, and then all the fish get caught, and then you scoop it up, and you get to see all the cool critters that are in there. So it's just a neat way to see what's there in the river that you normally wouldn't. And I think that might be. Hold on. And then here's some other organizations. There's the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. These are ones that are just kind of in Athens. You should definitely check out Keeping It Wild. The Greening Youth Foundation, of course, South River Watershed Alliance, Georgia River Network, Outdoor Afro. Have you guys ever heard of Outdoor Afro? You should check that out. That is a very cool organization. They've got a great Facebook page. All kinds of fun things to do in the area. If you want to camp, hike, kayak, tube, fish, whatever. And then Greening Forward, that's actually, the CEO of that organization is in high school, which is super cool. So we met him at one of the Adopt a Stream conferences, but you guys should check those organizations out as well. And then, you know, it's all about conservation and restoration. Look at all this trash and tires that they picked up and then recycled afterwards. So there's some great opportunities for you guys out there. And also, we have, Georgia River Network has a contest right now. And you can win, it's actually with Outdoor Afro. And if you did something cool on the river this summer, or the lake, or the stream, anything, the water activities, and you got it on video, submit it to Outdoor Afro or Georgia River Network Facebook page, and you can win a pair of free teen shoes, which are awesome. Very expensive shoes that are awesome for getting on the water. So go to Georgia River Network or Outdoor Afro and submit your video because it's totally worth it. And I think that's it.
Good. Well, we're going to thank Gwyneth Moody. Who learned a lot? Did you guys learn a lot? Yes. Okay. Now I have a couple of things. As part of our partnership with your school, you will be